Hi, this is Dr. Andarcia, and thank you for joining me again this week on the Healthful Roots podcast. Today I have Lara Acemian, and she is a death doula. We're going to be talking about death doulas, what they do, things that we should know about the process, and I'm really excited to get into this with you. But can you just please let's give us a little bit more of background?
Thank you so much, first of all, for having me. It's an honor because we don't get to share as often as we should this very important topic. That's something that people fear discussing. So the way that it started is about 10 years ago. My then mother-in-law was living in New York, and she was diagnosed with metastatic cancer, and she suffered tremendously. And the only person she had with her by her side was her husband, and it was a lot of emotional burden on them. I could see and feel her soul actually crying out loud, because there was just so many, things that she hadn't said out loud, any regrets that she hadn't, really expressed fully. And nobody to be with her during that very, difficult time. That's such a sacred time as well. So um, there was when that happened, it was just clear to me that there was a connection with the soul, and at the end of life, how important it is to process, our life. Um, so towards the end, at the very end, she entered hospice, and my then husband flew up to be up there, while I stayed behind with my two young kids, and I instinctively knew what she needed from here, to be able to guide him, so that she could be at peace. He was very distraught, of course, and at the very end, I told him, just play this song that she loves, and as soon as he did, she was able to, relax, let her body go, and she took her last breath. But the aftermath was really hard for our entire family, especially for him. He actually never processed the grief, and had so much unhealed, you know, emotions, unhealed grief. So that trauma impacted our entire family in, unimaginable ways. And that's when I truly realized how essential a peaceful death is. And not only for the person who's dying, but also for the loved ones that are left behind, So that,
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really a good point because I think
Mhm.
a lot of people think that it's focused, the work that you do is focused on the individual who's passing, but
Mhm.
you're right that that work also involves the people who are
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
And so what kind of support do you provide?
So I provide, it's non-medical care. I provide emotional, spiritual, and educational support for the family as well as the loved one who's going through this time. And I'm basically a guiding light in a way. And I'm able to provide them with support with anything that they need to feel at ease and to put any fears that they might have aside. By just being educated, it's the shift is, amazing, very often, and not only by knowing more about the dying process, but also by just being prepared and by having somebody by your side who's a calming presence, and who knows, that, these steps that are happening, they're normal. Just a lot of things like that.
And when you mean the shift, do you mean like that space when the person, almost accepts and understands what's happening, or what do you mean by that?
By the shift, I mean by what the shift in energy and how everybody is handling,
I see.
yeah, the this very difficult time.
Yeah. Okay. Because I've seen that in the hospital. That's what I thought you meant. Is like I've seen patients who are going through that difficult time, and then when they understand what's happening, like, hey, like this, there's no medicine that can save me. Like this is just kind of the end of the road. It's always interesting, and I always know when it happens when it's just like it's like they've accepted that moment and they're okay with it, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Hmm.
And I've had patients tell me like, hey, can you just talk to my daughter for me, or my son
Yes.
or whatever, because it's like that conversation is too difficult for them to have and they've already accepted it.
Yes. And very often, yeah, the family members have a hard time accepting it. And I've had clients who had accepted it and were ready to, for example, enter hospice. And unfortunately, their loved ones didn't want them to. And that was a real shame. That's often a real shame because they don't realize that hospice is actually, it's not giving up. It's really, deciding to live whatever time you have left in the most comfort and most peace that you might have. At home, hopefully, surrounded by your loved ones, be able to do a few things if you're able to still, and it makes a big difference in
Mhm.
that way. Yeah, and I have to also mention that we as death doulas, also known as end of life doulas, we work alongside the care team, whether it's hospice, palliative care, whoever it is, we work alongside them, so we don't replace. And
Right.
so often also there are families who do not know about us being available, and enter hospice, for example, and they realize, well, we have this nurse who comes once a week for an hour, and maybe a volunteer who comes once a week also for an hour, and that's just not enough. It's
Yeah,
just
I
not
know.
enough.
It's not enough. And
Yeah.
how do people find you? Like, who do you typically work with? Because I think it might be hard for people to understand, like, at what point would you say, I need an end of life doula?
Hmm. So I work with people from all stages of life. um, in that way, there are some families that I work with that are I have already entered hospice,
Mm.
and they have learned about death doulas and realize how helpful it would be to have one by their side. So I work at the end, and I also work with others who are elderly, and they're not even anywhere near the end of life. They're just older, and their daughter or granddaughter calls me and says, mom is saying I don't want to live anymore. And so they find my support, and I'm there to just talk about the difficult conversations, alleviate some of their fears, help them with practical stuff as well. And also, I also work with other people who have not they're young and they want to have their end of life advanced directives all planned and ready to go, which is very smart in my opinion. I have mine, ready, and just so that our loved ones don't have to guess at the end. And it makes things much easier and with less fear and guessing.
And do you prepare those documents or you just guide them?
I guide them. I guide them, and we do it together. Yeah.
Okay, great. And so that perfectly leads me into my next question was one, what are what are some of those difficult conversations that you're having?
The A few of them. There are so many, but let me think of a few of them.
Like if there's like a common theme maybe that like could help people think about what, normally goes on during that.
Well, I always come back to the regrets that a lot of them have at the end of their life, and the common theme, at the end of life is, I wish I had. I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that for myself or for my loved ones. I wish I had said those words. I wish I had spoken out loud about how I felt. And often, if those topics aren't guided, they don't come up because people are afraid to actually express them. And that is when, at the end of life, the soul is crying out loud screaming for that to get released.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, and we're gonna get into the regrets in a second, but I just want to point out because I don't want to forget, and that's what I was writing down, is that when I heard you speak, you gave a a speech or something that you had written, and it totally moved me and shifted something in me. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
paraphrasing, but it was something along the lines of like, let's live life in a way where we don't say, I wish I had, but
Mm-hmm.
more of, I'm glad I did.
Yes,
And I
exactly.
was, oh my gosh, that was so beautiful. And I think that's like so important to remember
Yeah.
because we get like so trapped in the day to day, but you're absolutely right.
Right. Right.
Okay. So on that, what are like some of the most common, I know that there's a book about like the top regrets, 5 top regrets of dying, but what are some of the common themes that you see?
So as I mentioned, the ones that of not having lived the life that they wish that they wanted, not what their parents had told them, or had not done the special education or really followed their heart. It's always at the end what their soul really needed.
I see.
Yeah. Um, so that's the most common, and as well as expressing those feelings and the love and the emotions, whether it was the love, showing more love, saying I love you, saying sorry, I'm sorry, or you hurt me, or there are so many, I forgive you. There are so many that, and when you wait for the very end, sometimes it's gets too difficult.
Yeah, that one surprises me. I don't know why, but I think that that was one of the common themes uh, that I noticed, and I was just surprised at how many people left with so much unsaid.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, to shift gears a little bit, because there was something else I wanted to go back to, because this is where I think it's important, because I see it so much in the hospital, is that I mean, I have 90-year-olds that come to the hospital and they haven't discussed code status with anybody,
Mhm.
and I'm just like, how is this possible? Because like my husband and I are in the process of getting our advanced directives and everything in order. I don't think that there is an age where it becomes appropriate to all of a sudden to do this.
Yes. You're so right. People don't realize that none of us know exactly when our last day is. And I see it. I see it every day. I have, very young people dying of cancer, um, or sudden, deaths. And because I also help, one thing I didn't mention is I also help the people who are grieving after the passing. So it's such a it's funny, we also think we're superhuman, and we never see the end until it happens. And really, that's way too late, because when someone is prepared, they see the end in a much more sacred way
Yeah.
than they would in a fearful way and a reactive way. So it's something that needs to be talked about more, and taken care of way before, as young as possible, really. And a lot of people also know about the getting their paperwork in order, their funeral plans in order, and they think, okay, they're all set. But there's also the other aspects of advanced directives, such as how do you actually want to feel? How do you want to? Where do you want to be? In the most perfect place. On your last day. Who do you want to have around you? All those things as well are very important. And a lot of people don't think about those.
I've never seen that in an advanced directive, but is that something that you can add?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's what a beautiful like way to have that, right? Where you plan and you kind of decide what you want. I think that's beautiful.
Hmm,
And so for
hmm.
people who are uncomfortable having that conversation, because I've seen that too, where they're like, nope, don't want to talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
How can you make it less scary or just like make it more approachable?
So they have to be willing to actually start thinking about it, and you know and or even if it's not by hiring an end of life doula, a good way is to start with small little conversations. Not making very heavy discussions, just here and there, lightly. Hey, by the way, I think I would want this, at the end of life, or this is what I'd like. Just start slowly.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the easiest way. And then other than that, I've been hired, many times when by the children, and with the for their parents not knowing that I'm a death doula, and just introduce having discussions and slowly introducing, the topics, and really getting to know them, and feeling comfortable and opening up. It's a lot of compassionate work, and as well as very intuitive, and guided with in this space, that when they are ready as well, it's something that you can't really push too much, but it's definitely a good thing to have in your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And so
Yeah.
for someone who's like, oh, these two, they're talking about like how to get ready, right? Like, what are like some practical steps? Like, how would you advise someone, like, look at this and then do this? And like, what are those? The advanced directive is one, but like, is it like a power of attorney document or like what other things do you recommend?
Well, when I start working with clients, I make sure that they have all those, very important documents ready. Or if they've made those decisions, if they've decided whether they will be cremated, or they will, have a regular funeral, or whatever it is, whatever their wishes are, I'm there to guide them and help them. And I make sure that they don't forget anything.
Okay.
That will be a big surprise at the end.
Okay. And then what
Yeah.
about the emotional and spiritual aspect? Is that something that you work with as well?
Absolutely. That's the number one part of it all, in my opinion. Yeah.
And how do you, this is a personal question, how do you manage that? Right? Because it would seem that that's like a heavy topic to deal with on the daily basis.
An extremely diligent self care and self love. Yeah. There's no other way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's beautiful work too, but it
Mhm.
definitely can be challenging.
Yeah.
And how has working so closely with death shifted your perspective on life?
Oh, it changed it completely. It's My life is not the same anymore. I see things differently. I feel things different in a much deeper way. I make sure to say the things that I want to say. When there's something that I want to do, or I think that I should do, I do it. Because you just don't know. And really, I feel like I cherish things so much more. And I'd say I view things as if it was almost the last day, such as colors around me. The colors feel so much more vibrant. When I hold somebody's hand, I truly feel their hand. I'm completely present with them. And just every little aspect has completely transformed.
Yeah, it sounds like you're just living in the moment and enjoying it
Yes.
very tenderly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that for me too, like saying goodbye, right? Like I make sure if my husband is leaving or my mom is leaving, like I
Yes.
hug them or I could give them a
Yes.
kiss, not just like bye, see you later, you know?
Yes.
I,
Exactly.
that is not a thing
You
I like to
cherish.
do.
Yeah. You cherish every moment.
Yeah, just make sure that you make note of that. Um,
True.
and one thing I do want to point out, just going back to something that you said, is like having a shift or changing your perspective. Is it is a heavy topic, but I don't know if I told you that I got my death doula certification during COVID.
You did mention
Yeah.
it.
Okay. So I did
Yes.
that. And what that helped me with was shifting my perspective because it went from something that felt like doom and gloom
Uh-huh.
to, oh, I'm helping this person suffer less, right?
Right.
Like I'm being honest with the family members and or I'm starting a conversation that maybe no other provider was ready
Mhm.
to have with this person.
That is so
So
needed in the medical
it's
field.
yeah, it's very needed and I can see why some providers avoid it, but something I just want everyone to know because I think it's relevant is that the more information you have, the less scary it is.
Exactly.
Right? And I think also like having a spiritual practice or just a spiritual belief, whatever it is,
Yeah.
I think that's also important because it also makes it less scary.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, it's a heavy
You're
topic,
spot
but
on. You're
yeah.
spot on, and I wish all doctors were trained as death doulas as well, because it is true. We see it as a sacred as the sacred time, um, as really a special time, not as a you know something that's terrible that's about to happen. It is a natural process in life for us, whether it is to die young or old, preferably when we're old, of course.
Mhm.
But even when somebody is old, people are still not able to accept it often. But of
Yeah.
course, it's always much harder when there's suffering involved for the family, especially to see their loved ones suffer. And I guide them in that way as well. Knowing the different symptoms that come with it, the pain that they have to deal with, and the things that are natural when it comes to different diseases. And for them to know that, like you mentioned, to be educated, relieves a lot of the fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
And what advice would you give to someone who is supporting a loved one at the end of life? Because I think that's something that we also don't learn and we don't really know how to do. So, how can we help those people?
I would say, first of all, that's a great question. A lot of people worry after the fact, wondering if they did the right thing, if they did enough. And what I always say is just be present with them. Just be present, be there for them, hold their hand, love them, and just, you know, cherish those moments that you have, whether it's a week, months, hours, whatever they are. As long as you're by their side, loving them, that's all that's needed. The Beatles will write, "All there is love. All that's needed is love" at the end, and it really is. It really is.
Yeah, and that's like another theme that comes up a lot is just loving,
Yeah.
being loved, expressing
Yes.
love, like that
Yes.
comes up a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, that is really good advice because I think sometimes people feel like they have to do,
Yes. Exactly.
but you're just saying just be
And
there.
the other thing is they often do as well to try and keep busy and are not present. So they forget to be present because they're trying to distract themselves. They don't want to feel the emotions. That's the other thing. So I tell them, slow down, be here now in this moment. This is the moment you have now. Tomorrow might be different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's really good advice because that's something that I've probably been guilty of in the past.
All
So,
of us, I think.
yeah. And are there any resources or books or anything that you recommend to someone who is just becoming aware of this conversation or these topics that they can get more familiar or more comfortable with?
Yeah, I would say to first try and start having the conversations with your loved ones, and journaling. A little bit of journaling is always good. What with prompts such as like, what would I want my last day to feel like, and just journal about that, and then you might start feeling a little bit more comfortable in the idea of actually speaking it out loud. It is a difficult conversation to have. A lot of people think, well, if I start talking about it, it's going to come sooner, but that's not the case, of course. So or another prompt would be, what brings me peace when I'm afraid. That's another thing you can journal about. There are a lot of books. One a very good book is The Art of Dying Well by Katie Butler. That's a very good book. Nothing to Fear by the hospice nurse Julie McFadden. Um, Barbara Barbara Carnes is an incredible nurse who created a series of little tiny booklets with each stage in the dying process and grief that are extremely easy reads, and I offer those to my clients at different times that are good, very, very easy reads. And podcasts. There's so many, books and podcasts, but one that comes to my mind is End of Life Education. There's a good podcast that has a lot of, good information. And apart from that, I would say as well to create rituals. I think rituals are very important, whether it's towards the end of life or after someone's passed. Rituals make the moments more sacred and honor, their loved ones, such as, lighting a candle at a specific time, or creating a small, area where you have placed some special items that you can go to and connect. So those are, things that I'd recommend.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of power in rituals.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, I mean, I don't know what like other people's beliefs are,
yeah.
but you always carry those people in your heart, right? And you
Yes,
always carry them in your memory. Like my dad passed away
yes,
in 2018, but like his memory feels so alive. We're always,
yeah,
telling the funny stories of like when this happened and that, and it just I think sometimes people like also shut down on that end and they just don't want to talk about this person who's passed. But I think that the more you talk about them, the more you can keep that memory alive. And it becomes like such a positive thing now when I hear a story about my dad and not a painful one.
yes. I absolutely agree with that. I say that once you stop telling their names, that's when they're truly dead,
Yeah.
because they're not. And yeah, and love never dies. Our love never dies. I also believe, that our energy never is, our soul is always here. So that's another reason why I'm doing this work. But yeah, absolutely. Don't ever stop talking about your loved one,
Yeah. That's beautiful.
even if it hurts at first.
Yeah. And it will. But
Yeah,
then it just becomes like such a fun thing to like
yeah,
hear or hear how your friends saw that person, right? Or,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So that's, my advice on that.
yeah.
And so the last, to wrap this up, how can someone connect with you if they wanted to like learn more or if they were interested in having a death doula for their family member?
They can reach me on my website at floridaangelcare.com. There they can find my email, my phone number, and they can contact me anytime. Whether they have a small question or they actually need guidance. I always want to be supportive and be there for anybody who needs that at this time especially.
Yes, yes. And I'll link that and I'll link your Instagram.
Thank you.
Yes, and that way they can reach out to you. But I really want to thank you for coming on and talking about this. I think it's such an important conversation just based off of what I see in the hospital.
Mhm.
Um, I think that we need to just get more comfortable talking about this. And so I was very, very thankful to have you come on today.
Yeah, I can't thank you enough. This is really a very important topic, and I I'm honored to be able to open that conversation with you. Thanks to you, really.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.